I moved to New York after college to be an actor and a writer and a comedian. That was my dream. My dream was to be on SNL and to just make bad jokes for a living. That was all I ever wanted to do. I kind of fell into documentary filmmaking. Should we wait for that? Of course, now that we start, we're just like, there's no sound ever. It's so quiet. I forgot. There's a train that goes by the house every day. My name is Rudy Valdez. I'm a director of photography, filmmaker, and a Canon Explorer of Light. I didn't know the first thing about being behind the camera, and it was just something that sparked. And it was a literal, almost like lightning hit me in the middle of filming something that wasn't a documentary, that wasn't anything other than I wanted to capture a moment. And it just so happened that that moment that I captured was emblematic of a life-changing event. And it was really a life-changing event for me because I watched how, if you're patient and you're filming the right thing and you're there for the right reason, stories can just unfold in front of you. And I, in an instant, was all in. During the process of the sentence, I was gradually working my way, through sound, through editing, through producing, and eventually shooting. I think it really gave me this wonderful background of what I first saw as an obstacle. This idea of having to do it all by myself. I'll be honest, like early on, I was frustrated because I thought, how do people do this on their own? How do they do sound? How do they shoot? How do they produce? How do they do all these things by themselves? And I was a little frustrated because I wanted help. A, because I didn't know what I was doing, and B, because it felt like it didn't matter to anybody, but then I slowly took that obstacle and I turned it into what eventually became my style. This intimate way of approaching everything. I only had, at that time, a 5D and a 51.2. That's all I had, that's all I could afford. To top it off, I didn't own lavaliers. All I had was a shotgun mic on the top going to a Zoom. And if I wanted to make sure I was getting good audio, I had to move in. I had to get tight. And it taught me when I went back and I was looking at it in the edit, I was like, look at this. And so that thing that became the obstacle, the not having a lavalier, the not having a Zoom, the not having help, the not having a sound mixer, not having any of that stuff, I became a filmmaker. I was like, I'm gonna figure out how to do this. Again, it was my directing debut, and immediately after that, all these other ideas and I don't wanna say offers, but like potential film ideas were being thrown at me, and it was more criminal justice, more social justice, more prison film. And making the sentence was so hard that I thought I couldn't see myself doing that to that level again. And then there were all these ideas swirling around in my head of, I don't want to exploit people. I don't want to take advantage of people. And in the back of my mind, I always have, when I'm asking questions, when I'm filming with somebody, when I'm in these very intimate settings and situations with people, I think to myself, would I treat my father this way? Would I ask this of my mother? Would I ask this of my sister? And that's the spine behind everything that I'm shooting, everything that I'm asking, everything that I'm editing. Would I have done this with my family? I think that helps me because it not to say other filmmakers don't care, because I think that they do, but for me personally, to keep going, I have to understand that it's not about me, first of all. I'm fortunate enough to be there to tell these stories and amplify stories. I honestly don't fully love the title of director because I'm no expert on somebody else's life. But I have that experience of making the sentence and working with my family in that way to say, I know what I'm doing is something I wouldn't ask of somebody I don't love. In 2008, my sister was sentenced to a 15-year federal prison sentence. And I remember being there that day in the courtroom and watching it all kind of unfold, hearing my nieces, her daughters in the hallway kind of laughing and playing and watching life just kind of change in front of me. And when they handed her the sentence, I remember standing up and I remember thinking to myself, is somebody gonna say something? Nobody said anything, and I figured, I'm gonna figure this out. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I'm gonna figure this out, and I'm going to write this. The next day I went to her house, something told me to pick up a camera, and I just start filming her kids, because in the back of my mind I thought, until I figure this out, I'm gonna do everything I can to capture as many moments of their life so that when she comes out, she can watch them. At the very least, she can watch them grow up for this little bit of time until I figure this out. And I knew that I just captured something that was emblematic of a larger story. I've only seen my dad cry 4 times in my life, and he just kept saying, how did you know? How did you know? How did you know? And I remember it took me back to that first scene, and that first moment. And I remember thinking, look, we've been through so much as a family already. We're about to embark on a pretty incredible journey that's going to be tough. And we're going to be very proud of how we come out on the other end. And I wanted to capture that. And that's what I told my dad. I said, I didn't know any of this. I didn't know this would become a film. I didn't know it would get into Sundance. I didn't know anyone would ever see this, but I knew I wanted to capture this for whatever reason. And that's the core of who I am as a filmmaker, is like understanding that there's power there, that there's voice. I think the most gratifying part of this entire process has been watching my family see their little story, this little nugget of a story that's in a tiny part of this grander thing, have such a big impact. And that's literally just holding a camera and capturing these moments and putting them together in a way that means something. We were fortunate enough to go and show the film on Capitol Hill and truly have an impact on federal sentencing guidelines. And I remember my sister calling me, and my mom and my dad calling me and saying, can you believe this little story is helping so many people? And watching them be proud of themselves and their story made me want to keep doing this, because I was done. I was like, I'm gonna find something else to do. Maybe I'll go back to comedy, maybe I'll do something, but I didn't want to make another film. But they taught me, they showed me why I should keep going and why I should continue doing this. And I'm super grateful for that, because I was ready to stop. I don't know if I answered any of your questions. Now you want the truth? I'm kidding. I'm joking. This is hard. This is why I'm on that side all the time, because I don't know what to say.